at the same time, you really have to be crazy to be a filmmaker in 2025.
Hi, Emilio. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
I'm excited that you were able to come on. We actually met at World Fest Houston because your debut feature film, The Ladder, was screening at World Fest.
Yeah, we met each other at World Fest Houston International Film Festival, and it was actually exciting because ahead of the film festival, I like to look up festivals that we're going to screen at just to see if there's any news or press leading up to the actual event. And so I had seen your podcast about the festival before the film festival, and I was excited to meet you there. And I've had my work screened at other festivals in Texas. I originally grew up in Alaska, a small fishing town there called Ketchikan, Alaska. And that's actually the setting of my first feature film, The Ladder. But I've kind of bounced around everywhere. I went to high school in Seattle. I went to film school in New York, and now I live in Phoenix. So it's kind of hard to pin down where I'm from necessarily.
Before I actually spoke to you, I attended the director's panel that you were on.
Oh, okay.
And just listening to you speak about your work and your craft and your education, like it really blew me away. I'm like, this guy is 25 years old and he is speaking like this. So I'm really excited to watch your career and see like what's going to happen in the next 5 years. Like you've already achieved so much.
I'm very grateful. And obviously, I've had a lot of fortunate things play out in my favor in my life. And so I understand like the privilege and the opportunities I've been given and I'm very grateful for them. And I've just tried to make the most of any opportunity that's come my way. And I think that's why I've been able to make a movie, do the projects I've done. At the same time, I do think also like I'm a big advocate of like it's never too late to start in your career and it's never I can speak to NYU and my experience at film school, but I'm also someone who doesn't think it's like necessary to go to film school. So the fact that I'm 25 and I've kind of had the growth I've had over 5 years in particular, like that could be replicated for anyone listening to this if they have a passion about film at any stage of life. So it's just happened to be that I went to a school and then had the right pathway to do what I've done.
I'm glad you mentioned that. You truly can start at any age. And like you said, you've had a lot of, I don't know, I guess access. Like this is just your story. This is how your story played out. You were able to go to one of the most prominent film schools in the country and you were able to do all these things, but that's not necessarily someone else's path. And they could
Mhm.
still accomplish like what you have or even greater. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
And I do believe it. And I think, for those listening who may not be familiar with the film, my feature film is a sci-fi film that takes place in Alaska. And it's about this fisherman who's growing older. And as he's getting older, he can't really keep up with the demands of work. And at the same time, he gets offered to do this sort of Black Mirror-esque procedure where he can upload his memories into a computer and basically copy himself into a 20-year-old version of himself and restart life as a 20-year-old with all the knowledge he has. But the film explores why or why not he might want to do this procedure. And it's a real movie. It's a real, feature-length film. When I tell people that I made a movie with some friends, they have a certain perspective of what it's going to be. And it's
Mhm.
on the festival circuit now. It's a true independent film. And we were able to make it because I grew up in this small town in Ketchikan that has a very active arts community. A lot of people don't make movies in Alaska. So there was a lot of risks taken to try to make it happen. But I also saw like, oh, here's a community that wants to support me. I want to create something with them. But I guess what I'm saying is like, yeah, I feel like it's a mixture of like having the opportunities, but also knowing when to take the leaps and when to kind of create opportunity for yourself.
I want to talk about the crowdfunding experience for this film. I was looking at your YouTube channel on the director's panel. You specifically mentioned that you have a video about how to crowdfund an independent film. And correct me if I'm wrong. So the budget was $185,000 for the film. And
Hmm.
you funded some of that. You self-produced some of it. And then you also had another producer,
Hmm.
Alexandria Hellman. But talk to me about the crowdfunding experience.
Yeah, no, totally. Something people don't know, if you're in the film or arts world, you may be more familiar, but I feel like a lot of people that have come along on this journey with me don't necessarily have a background in new film. So, in general, when you make a film, it obviously costs money, and there's lots of reasons for that. Even if you don't pay all your cast and crew to make a proper film, you need equipment, you need locations, you need food, you need props, and it always costs money to make a movie in some way. And so what a lot of filmmakers do is they'll do crowdfunding campaigns where they raise money, and you'll see them on GoFundMe and Kickstarter. And when I went to film school, I realized that, like, NYU is really awesome and they give you a lot of opportunity. Something people don't always realize is, like, they don't give you money to make your movie. So, like, even if you have this idea, oh, I'm going to make this thesis film, you've already given them $100,000 to go there. And then you also still have to pay for the actual, like, cost of the project. A lot of people do crowdfunding campaigns. When I went to NYU, I guess for some context for those who don't know, is I went to NYU in 2018, and I was a kid who grew up in the small town Alaska. I went to high school in Seattle. I kind of taught myself filmmaking in a way. I did have mentors growing up who taught me a lot, and YouTube was a big film school. As a kid, by senior year of high school, I was still editing an iMovie and just shooting stuff on whatever camera I had. Then I went to NYU, and already from fall of freshman year, I was dealing with people who have already worked on cinema cameras and big sets. And I just felt so behind technically. And I also felt behind in industry and business knowledge because people were already crowdfunding big campaigns to raise money. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is tough. And then what I saw some people do, which I think I would suggest people not do this, is like, let's say over NYU, you make 4 short films over your 4 years. I'd see someone be like, I'm going to do a crowdfunding campaign for $5,000 my freshman year and then $10,000 my sophomore year. And it's like every year they're like, we're raising money again to make
Setting
a
these
short
goals for
film.
themselves.
Yeah, which worked out for some people, but I was imagining my family and my friends, and I'm like, if I feel like I ask them for money every single year, by the 4th time, they're going to be like, all right,
Yeah.
we already give you a lot of money.
Enough.
Yeah. So I was like really determined to do all my projects for super cheap or to self-fund them in some way or use them for grants until I graduated NYU. And normally NYU is a 4-year program where your 4th year, if you're interested in being a director, you make your thesis film. But I went to NYU and COVID hit my sophomore year. So my junior year, I was learning from home. I was on virtual webcams, taking film production classes. And I literally thought to myself, I'm like, I would rather graduate sooner and get out there and start my career than wait and see what happens with COVID and everything. So I worked with my guidance counselor, and we figured out a way for me to graduate a year early by taking some extra classes because I had AP credits from high school. And that was really great. Like I got to graduate a year early and things were great, but then I didn't have a thesis film. So the latter became my thesis film. And this all context matters because my crowdfunding campaign started with the short film in 2021. We made a 15-minute proof of concept short film. I knew I wanted to make a short film to kind of showcase what the premise of the story was and what the tone was, try to get that to festivals, try to win awards, and then I would be able to then try to make a feature film down the road. I didn't think it would all happen as quickly as it did, but that was the plan.
That was your goal.
And so what I did, which, I have a video about it, like you said, but really it just kind of was like, I had this momentum because I have family and friends. I'm active on social media who kind of saw me go through NYU and learn all these things. I graduated and I made this month-long campaign in like April to May of 2021. And I was like, hey, I'm graduating NYU. I'm going to make my first film after school. We're going to shoot it in my hometown. We're going to cast local actors. We're going to involve local businesses. Here's a crowdfunding campaign. And we raised $15,000 in just 10 days, half
That's
of which we
incredible.
raised in one day.
Wow.
And there's
10
lots of
days.
strategies that go into it, but that was huge because then that momentum helped us make the short film. And then when the short film went to festivals and won awards, it ended up getting distribution on Alaska Airlines. And all while that was happening, I was writing the script for the full length feature version. And so
Wow.
then I had sort of a success in the proof of concept to then get some investors. So most of our budget is from investors who own a percentage of the film and are expecting a return on their investment. But then also we got sponsorship deals with local organizations that wanted to support the film and believe in our vision, our biggest one being the Tongass Federal Credit Union in my hometown. And then, yeah, $55,000 of our budget we raised through crowdfunding. And that was mainly just family, friends, people online who believed in us and would give us $20 here, $100 here, and it all added up. And so, yeah, that's been the journey. And it's been really tough because I've done this all either while being a student or while working full time in a day job. But, at the same time, you really have to be crazy to be a filmmaker in 2025.